and jump right in. So, Final Fantasy 15 it takes place in the Final Fantasy universe, which I have a running theory, if you are a regular to the channel, that all of the Final Fantasy stories are related in some way. It's simply a matter of who is telling the story. And we'll talk about that when we play the Final Fantasy VII Remake. But for this game, in particular, it follows the story of 4 main characters. From left to right on the screen, the first 4 are the main characters of this game. Prompto, Gladiolus, aka Gladio, Prince Noctis Lucius Callum, and Ignis, aka Iggy. Prince Noctis is the heir of the kingdom. His father, King Regis, is ailing and will not survive much longer, largely because the kingdom is at war, and the king is using his special magic to defend the people from the attacking Imperials. He does this with twofold: the Sword of the King and the Shield of the King. The Sword of the King, aka the Kingsglaive, is the ability to draw weapons, various items, and personnel across time and space for militaristic purposes, generally. Noctis can do it with a fishing pole, but we'll get on that in a moment. Basically, the King's Glaive is hammer space. Soldiers, trained soldiers, special weapons, it's all tied to the king or the prince. They have the same power and can be called upon to assist wherever they are. The Shield of the King is literally a giant dome of energy around the kingdom that the king maintains through sheer force of will. It is understandably tiring. Now, what is the wellspring of the king's power? That is the Ring of the Lucii, an incredibly mystical relic that the king, or in this case the prince, because Noctis does inherit it before the game begins, can use to convene with forces of light, and I say that with air quotes around them because they are very obviously demons, to gain immense power and protect the kingdom. Now, only the king can bear the Ring of the Lucii, and this is incredibly important because prior to Final Fantasy XV, the ring is borne by a non-royal. The plot of Kingsglaive, the movie Kingsglaive, involves the Ring of the Lucii being taken from King Regis by the kingdom that they're at war with. For our purposes, we'll just refer to them as the Empire. The Empire takes the Ring of the Lucii, excuse me, and Corn312 says, "When aren't beings of light not demons?" Fair. And a member of the Royal Guard, a member of the Kingsglaive, takes the ring with the intent of getting it to Prince Noctis. However, Prince Noctis is not in the movie Kingsglaive, so his trials and tribulations are getting the ring to Noctis in some way. And in so doing, he is forced to wear the ring and call upon the power of the kings, which he does in a badass kaiju battle against the giant mech that the Empire brings out. And then it fucking eats his soul. So, you know, Ring of the Lucii, not great, but also great. Noctis is betrothed to a woman by the name of Lunafreya. That is literally all you have to know about Lunafreya because she's not a very well-written character. However, what I will tell you is that Lunafreya is one of the most powerful mages in the world. She herself is the princess of another kingdom, a small kingdom, that is allied with both Regis and Noctis' kingdom and the Empire, mostly the Empire, and it's a political marriage, but they are old friends. She is a powerful, what is called white mage in the Final Fantasy universe. She has incredible healing magic and some decent earth-shattering offensive magic as well if she needs it. She gains the Ring of the Lucii from said member of the Kingsglaive. and promises to get it to Noctis. Noctis flees the kingdom during the attack by the I got the word wrong 3 times in my head. Empire. I keep wanting to say Imperium, and then I wanted to say Imperial, and then I wanted to say Emperor, and none of those are the word that I wanted. I did it again. Empire. He flees with his retinue. Gladio is his personal royal guard. Gladio is like the captain of the Kingsglaive for Noctis. Gladio's father, I think, was the captain of the Kingsglaive for Regis. Ignis is Noctis's, not warden per se, footman. That's the word I want. Footman. He is basically his driver, his manservant. He's also his buddy. Don't get me wrong. Like, Noctis treats his friends very well, but Ignis ultimately is Noctis's butler, basically. And then Prompto, who's just along for the ride. That's not a joke, by the way. Noctis and Prompto are really good friends. He is not particularly important in the political scheme. He's just a dude who likes to take pictures, and he hangs out with Noctis and helps him with stuff. Like, that's Prompto's story. That's not a joke. But his retinue gets into the royal convertible, that's not a joke, and sets off to go meet Lunafreya, get the Ring of the Lucii, get married, and from there have the political clout to get the Imperials to stop attacking, apparently. And that's effectively Kingsglaive. Now, there's another story called Brotherhood, and Brotherhood talks about these characters and a few peripheral characters as children. Now, I say as children. Let me be clear, Noctis is like 17. They're still very much children. But this is like when they're tinies. It's a very short animated series about like what they do, what they're up to. And it talks about what I just said about Prompto. That's basically his story. He's just a dude. He's just a little dude, a commoner, for want of a better word, who sees the prince at school one day and is like, "Do you want to hang out and have some of my lunch?" And then they become friends. There's another story about Prompto, like, being very overweight and, choosing to get into shape to, help defend the kingdom, which is why he looks like that. But ultimately, it's literally about him being a commoner and how even a commoner can help the prince. That's his story. Before I move on, the Outlaw Otaku. It seems someone on the court has their eye on you. I've got your invitation right here. Your table is waiting, my friend. Welcome back to the masquerade, where the party never stops, and you'll always find good friends beneath overflowing goblets. Thank you, Trescare, for your continued support, offering up 184 gifted subs to this channel, and thank you, Outlaw, for your subscription. It's support like that that allows me to do this every day for you guys. Cheers. The Outlaw Otaku says Noctis is 20 at the beginning of the game. Thank you for that, my mistake. He acts like a 16-year-old, and you can't even change my mind on that. Anyway, Gladio's story is about learning to not be overprotective. Gladio has a younger sister by the name of Iris. Iris is obsessed with Noctis, even as a tiny. And Gladio is overprotective of his little sister and overprotective of Noctis until Iris leads Noctis on an adventure straight out of National Treasure 2, causing Gladio to freak the fuck out. And his dad is like, "Bruh, if there's no blood, they're fine." And that's his story. So when we see Gladio in the game, he is very protective of Noctis in the sense of, like, this person is a threat, I'm going to stand in front of you. He's the tank of the group, like, literally, he's the tank of the group. But he is also keen to let Noctis make his own decisions and make his own mistakes. Iggy is Noctis's tutor, like, footman, manservant, call it what you want, and also his royal chef. The main thing that I want to draw on with Iggy is during Brotherhood, he is obsessed with making this dessert that reminds Noctis of his deceased mother. It's a tart Noctis thinks. Noctis has a terrible memory, by the way, because the Kingsglaive makes you really tired, because it draws on the energy from your soul. When Regis dies, Noctis inherits it, and it makes him very tired. So you'll see Noctis as kind of a lazy layabout who just wants to sleep all the time and complains about being tired. And if you've seen Kingsglaive and if you've seen Brotherhood, you know that's because he's got a giant shield up around his citizens, and he's trying to, like, get used to that. But it also fucks with his memory, and Noctis has a notoriously bad memory. He had this tart, he thinks, at his mother's, like, wedding, I think, something like that. And he really, really, really wants it, and he mentions it to Iggy, and this kind of shows Iggy's neurosis a little bit. He mentions it to Iggy once, and Iggy becomes obsessed with recreating this dish. So he's constantly making these little tarts with various fillings for Noctis to try, and Noctis, he becomes a spectacular cook because of it. He's a fantastic cook, but every time Noctis is like, it's not quite right, it's not quite right, it's not quite right. And it really, like, messes with Iggy. And, all I'm gonna say is that's resolved in this game. That's all I'm saying on that. It's one of my favorite moments of this game, and for sure, we are gonna do it. Other than that, what you need to know is, at the beginning of this game, the boys are on vacation. But it's a Final Fantasy game. It starts off, the boys don't know that the Empire attacks the city. The country, really, the capital. The boys are just going to go meet Lunafreya, get married, get the Ring of the Lucii, and then Noctis is going to become king. Oh, I should probably mention the prophecy. I forgot about the prophecy, and this is kind of important. So, it is said that Noctis, heir of the crown, will bring light to everyone. He will banish the dark where the demons spawn naturally. He will be the savior of the entire universe at the cost of his life. And so he's kind of running from that a little bit too. Point being, is the beginning of the game, the boys don't know about the attack, they don't know about the Kingsglaive situation, they just know they're gonna go to that city that you see in the background, actually, of this image, to marry Lunafreya. I don't remember the name of the city, and I apologize for that. To marry Lunafreya, get the Ring of the Lucii, and then enter, like, peace talks with the Imperials, who are doing a lot of saber-rattling right now. There is a lot more to this game. There are hunts, there are rebels, there are dungeons, there are magic weapons. All of this is explained in the game, so I'm not going to set the stage for that. But suffice to say, I've been itching for a JRPG, and this is a long one. Altessia? I don't think that's right, Outlaw, but it might be. So we're not probably going to do everything in this game, but we're going to do a lot, because I've been itching for a JRPG, and this is a good one. So now, you guys are mostly caught up with this. Now, I will say, there are a couple of familiar faces in this game. You will see Cid, if you know Cid. You will see Biggs and Wedge, if you know Biggs and Wedge. You will see that the Imperials look very much like Shinra soldiers, and I believe there's a reason for that. Core312 says, my question is, are we going to turtle? We might turtle, friend. I'm not going to commit one way or the other. But now the stage is set, and the players are prepared.